my dear brother, Yaakov, Shalom. Shalom to all of you who are with us tonight. Today is our third lesson towards the getting ready for the Passover holiday. We spoke about the reason why Passover holiday is called Passover holiday. We spoke about the concept of the splitting of the Red Sea. And today, I want to take you to a journey to try to understand another major theme of this wonderful holiday. Another major theme that goes through the entire holiday. As a matter of fact, we spoke about Passover, and we said that Passover is the name of the holiday. But actually, when we read in the Torah, Passover is the day before the holiday. It is the 14th day of the month of Nisan. But on the 15th day of the month of Nisan begins another holiday. The Passover holiday in the Torah is one day. It's the 14th of Nisan. But on the 15th of Nisan begins a 7-day holiday. As it says in Exodus 13, verse 6, for 7 days you shall eat matzah. And on the 7th day, there is a festival for the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten during the 7 days. Matzot, we eat matzot for 7 days. And it's called Chag HaMatzot. That is the name of the holiday. Chag HaMatzot. We open in the book of Leviticus. In Leviticus 23, we have a list of all the holidays, and the Passover holiday is called Chag HaMatzot. It's in Leviticus chapter 23. The holiday Chag is the holiday of Matzot. It's actually the first, and if we read there, we see that verse 4, these are the Lord's appointed holidays, holy occasions. Shalom Bernard, Shalom Yaakov. These are the holy days. And what does it say? In verse 5, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at the afternoon, you shall celebrate Passover. Passover for the Lord. And on the 15th day of that month is the festival of Matzot to the Lord. You shall eat matzot for a 7-day period. So we see that the holiday of the 7 days is called Chag HaMatzot. And why is it called Chag HaMatzot? Because we are supposed to be eating matzot for those 7 days. But I want to point out that besides the obligation, besides the mitzvah, besides the commandment of eating matzah, as it says, we saw before in Exodus 13, for 7 days you shall eat matzah. But there's another striking thing, and that is something that I want to talk about today. Because not only does the Torah tell us that we have to eat matzah for 7 days, but we see that there is something even striking beyond the mitzvah to eat. Listen carefully what it says here. In Exodus 13, verse 7, matzah shall be eaten during 7 days, and no leaven shall be seen. Lo yera'eh, Shalom Joseph, Shalom Heather. No unleavened bread, no leavening should be seen throughout all your borders. They're not allowed to be seen. And in Exodus 12, it even goes stronger than that. It says, you're not allowed to have, it's not allowed to be there. Lo yimatzeh. It shouldn't be in existence. If we read in Exodus 12, verse, let me see, where is it? Let's see. We have the mitzvah. It shouldn't be lo yimatzeh. Lo yimatzeh. It shouldn't be there. Here we have here. Let me see. Here, on verse 19 in chapter 12, 7 days leavening shall not be found in your houses. So it's not to be seen. It's not allowed to be found. And it's so critical. The Torah repeats it again and again. And we really want to try to understand what is the meaning. Why are matzah, why Mela, okay, we say we're supposed to eat matzah to remember that the bread that they ate from when they left Egypt. But why is the obligation, the limitation, the prohibition of eating chametz so severe, so it's like a critical limitation? It's prohibited completely, like not allowed to be there, not allowed to be there. And I think if we read in the Torah, we'll see that there are other occasions where we're not only that we're not allowed to have chametz, and maybe it'll give us a little bit of an explanation. For instance, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 2, verse 13, the Torah tells us that you're not allowed to bring to the offering, to the altar. You're not allowed to bring in any of your offerings. You're not allowed to bring any kind of chametz. It says all male offerings, verse 11. Again, all male offerings sacrificed on the altar are matzah and not chametz. You're not allowed to have the leavened bread brought to the altar. And I think let's start by that. The offering that a person brings upon the altar, it's like a prayer, an expression of a man standing before God, filled with a sense of his own lowliness and insignificance, and a humility, and with a sense of how beholden and dependent he is on God. A person cannot stand before the altar with a proud sense of wealth that declares his independent stature, as in verse, my strength and my might and my hand have achieved all the valor. You see that in Deuteronomy 8. A sacrifice offered with such a feeling would be an act of impudence, of pride, of arrogance, one of the most serious transgressions in a man's relationship with God. For this reason, the Torah tells us explicitly, you shall not burn any leaven or any honey, the symbols of wealth, the symbols of satiety and an offering of God. Even the first fruits, the bikurim, the first fruits that we brought to the temple, with a ceremonial declaration, as we see in Deuteronomy 26, which serve to inculcate our recognition of God's role in one's success, may not be offered upon the altar, since they're not offered like a prayer of a poor man who, when he's in faint, who pours out his case in front of God. It's no coincidence that our sources identify leaven with like some kind of evil inclination, Yetzer Hara, a person who is blessed with an abundance of physical health, material assets, and even rootedness in the land of Israel, may fall into a false sense of might and independence and forget God. God who gives us the strength to perform valor. This is precisely the aspect of a feeling of a person who's tempted, especially in the land of Israel. And it may lead him off the proper path. Therefore, a person is obligated to remember his humble beginnings, his servitude, his wandering in wilderness, in the manna of Exodus. I see here, Alexander, why would you not eat every day? So now, this is what I'm trying to point out. So that's a very good question. If we say that the chametz is such a terrible thing, then why every day do we not eat it? Why every day do we eat it? And I want to try to bring that, in order to understand this, I want to take you for a second to another offering. In the offering of the Thanksgiving, if you go into Leviticus chapter 7, we see that there's one offering. There's one offering that we can bring leavened bread. Not only can we're supposed to. If you open in Leviticus 7, in verse 12, it says, if you're bringing your offering as a thanksgiving offering, you shall offer along with the thanksgiving offerings unleavened loaves of mixed with oil, unleavened wafers anointed with oil, and a scalded mixed floured with oil. And then in verse 13, along with loaves of leavened bread, you should bring these offerings along to the Thanksgiving peace offering. So we see that when we bring a Thanksgiving offering, then we're precisely supposed to bring chametz. So what is that? Why? And this is very, very important. A person who brings an offering of thanksgiving, it's brought by a person who faced danger. He was in predicament. It was delivered from it. Therefore, when he's saved, it's proper that his offering should include chametz and matzah. Why? The matzah symbolized the trouble he was in the bitter cry that he uttered, the process of redemption from that predicament to an open space of relief. The chametz represents the completion of his deliverance, his current state of tranquility. It's an expression of reaching the end of the particular road, the attainment of peace and satisfaction. It's interesting that there's an interesting Psalm 107, excuse me. The psalmist presents 4 instances of redemption from trouble, and we see that each one of those 4 instances, a person goes through the trouble, calling out to God, God saving him, and finally, thanks to God. Now, when we concentrate on the sorrow, we stand humbly. When we come to the point of thanks, then we can stand and enjoy the praising of God. And here we can apply the same principle on the matzah of Passover. Concerning the Passover sacrifice, the Torah speaks of the bread of affliction, lechem oni, not only because of the haste in which it was baked, but also because those who left Egypt were indeed like oppressed refugees, setting out on a long journey through the wilderness. On Passover Eve, the Israelites were still in Egypt. Until the middle of the night, they were still Pharaoh's slaves. Under such conditions, there's no room, either at the time of Passover or the later generations, for chametz. There's no need, there's no reason to eat leavened bread. At midnight, God struck the firstborn of the land of Egypt. He redeemed his nation from imprisonment. Generations of spiritual and physical subjugation were brought to a sudden end, with a long-awaited fulfillment of the promised redemption. Seemingly, the nation should now have been able to lounge about like free people, setting a festival banquet table and singing praise and thanks in a relaxed atmosphere with rich bread. But it suddenly becomes clear how far the redemption is from being complete. The Egyptians pressed upon the people to send them out of this land in haste, and the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. The people embark on a long journey in the great and terrible wilderness of snakes and scorpions and thirst, where there is no water. Before they have a moment to relax and enjoy their freedom, filling their lungs with clear air of freedom, they're already gasping in their hasty flight to a land of dry desolation. Apparently, redemption is prolonged. Difficult processes require patience and a great capacity for discomfort. The ability to achieve the desired level of prosperity and comfort is not yet in hand. The chametz lies behind and beyond the horizon for them. When Israelites leave Egypt, all they have is their matzah, the bread of affliction. Their ongoing sustenance of exiled refugees continues to be provided not by their own efforts, but rather as a kindness from above. They asked, and he brought. He satisfied them with bread from the heaven. He opened the rock, and water gushed forth. For this reason, Chametz is strictly forbidden for all generations, specifically on the days following the anniversary of the Exodus from Egypt. The Mazzah, the unleavened bread, which is eaten for 7 days on the festival of Matzot, expresses the true redemption with all of its trials and tribulations, an ongoing redemption comprising many stages. The prohibition of Chametz highlights the absence of a complete redemption that happens instantaneously, emphasizing that the Chametz of Shavuot, which happens on the Pentateuch, which happens 50 days later, then we have an obligation to eat Chametz. The danger of expecting instant Chametz, that things should immediately become easier and more comfortable, which is quite understandable and natural to a redeemed nation, explains the severity of the prohibition that distances us from it. The winding path that starts with the denigration of subjugation and the exodus from it, ultimately leading to the hope for peace and tranquility of the land of Israel at the end of the journey, finds expression in the counting of 50 days from the beginning of harvest, from the day when the Omer offering is brought, until the festival of the harvest, which is the day of the first fruits, on the day following the end of the 7th week. On this day, we bring 2 loaves of bread. And so the journey from Egypt has two conclusions. One, the receiving of the word of God at Mount Sinai. 2, arriving in the land of Israel. When we do these, we can eat the chametz. When we bring the Thanksgiving offering, we can eat bread and we can read honey. But until then, we have to remind ourselves that, yes, we celebrate the redemption, but we are not a complete redemption. And this is what we're trying to say when we celebrate Passover and don't eat the leavened. We eat only the leavened bread, and we don't have in our existence anything else. So that we should understand that things take the time. And first of all, 7 days, enjoy the very simple fact that we're freed people. Eventually, when the redemption process is completed, we can completely celebrate. So he who does not celebrate redemption at all, of course, is terrible. But he who thinks that Passover is already the complete process also misses the point. So we eat the matzah, we understand we have our basic needs we have, but we understand that we're not overdoing it. I wish us all a wonderful month of holiday. I thank you all for being with us, and I hope that the redemption process will be completed completely, and we will be able to eat and enjoy the presents we receive from God. And I want to point out one last thing. The Torah emphasizes that on our holidays, we are to remember the orphan and the widow. We are to remember those who don't have a family like we have, those who don't have a house like we have. And so we, in the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation, together with the Amitzim organization, we will hope to bring happiness and joy to many, many more families of orphans and widows. Please partner with us at shalomjerusalem.org. I love you all from Jerusalem. Thank you. Thank you again. Shalom and blessings from Jerusalem. Shalom, Joseph. Shalom, Cindy. Shalom, Hunter. Shalom to every one of you who was here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining. Shalom to Heather. Shalom to Bernard. Shalom to Yaakov. I love you all. Thank you very much for coming.